here's Brody Brazil.
Well, here we are again with another NHL season literally right around the corner. Can you believe training camps open up in less than a week? And in about 3 weeks' time, we'll be watching opening nights all across North America. But going into this hockey season, there's already a bit of controversy to address and discuss. Now, it focuses on one head coach, his team, and his players. I'm talking about Mike Babcock and members of the Columbus Blue Jackets. But honestly, this is so much of a bigger picture, widespread conversation to have. Like, I know this is going to be the focal point, but by the end of this video, we'll kind of address the bigger hockey culture issue going on here and why this is such a big deal, why this might be a precedent, how this gets handled. Like, this Babcock and Blue Jackets thing, if that's what you want to call it, I don't think it's going to subside. It's not easily going away. What are we talking about here? Well, first, you need to know Mike Babcock's NHL timeline and history. He's only been a head coach in this league. Got his start, a lot of people think it was with the Wings, but actually got his start with the Anaheim Ducks in 2002, brought them to a Stanley Cup final. They lost to the Devils, then went on to Detroit, had all those successful years, basically a decade straight of making the playoffs in Detroit. And then he ultimately went on to Toronto. And with the Leafs from 2015 to 2019, it was actually in, I think, November, December, the first time that he had actually ever been let go, fired by an NHL team. All of those other moves prior to that were his decision to go somewhere else, get a better opportunity. But again, Mike Babcock as a head coach, if you're going to grade him, evaluate him, he and his teams made the playoffs literally every single season from 02 to 19, minus maybe like twice. So that's a pretty impressive track record. There's also this, if you go back and look at, and I forget the span of years, but there was, I think it was the decade with the Wings, his teams took 25% fewer penalties than the league average. Like, he got them to play with structure and discipline. He got a lot, and some would say the most, out of his teams. But again, maybe that came at a price and the way he was handling his players. More on that in just a second. So after 2019, he's let go by the Leafs. A lot of it surrounding culture and dressing room issues. And somebody's got to take the fall for that. Somebody is in charge of that. We didn't hear much from Mike Babcock. We didn't see him much through 2020, eventually 2021. He latches on with the University of Saskatchewan. Now, he's from that part of Canada, so no surprise, kind of going home, maybe taking a little bit of a big-time lower spotlight type role. He's in the college coaching ranks, and then at the end of the 22 season, I believe he said he was going to just retire from coaching. Well, obviously that's not true, because July of 2023, this past summer, the Columbus Blue Jackets bring him back into the NHL. So again, important you understand where he's been. And this is not an evaluation of Mike Babcock, but you do need to know his history. He's been around this league a ton. Hundreds, if not thousands of players coached, thousands of games coached, and probably kind of that old school mentality that maybe doesn't work as much anymore. Now, let me just throw this in from personal experience. The one connection I can say I have, not only, covering Sharks games against all of Mike Babcock's teams over the years, but former Sharks head coach Todd McClellan was one of Babcock's assistants in Detroit in those early years in Michigan. And Todd was not identical to Mike Babcock. And I never played for Todd, but I observed him like inside and out. A lot of stuff that most people never got to see. I loved the way that he prepared, handled his players. If he was a descendant of at least Mike Babcock's work ethic, then, man, that's a pretty good compliment to both Todd and Mike Babcock. But that's really, as far as I can take it, that's really the only connection here that I can actually make. The current issue is this, and a lot of it coming from the Spit and Chicklets podcast, Whitney and Bissonnette on that, and kind of leading the charge here. They're, I guess, accusing, I don't know the right word to use, but they are putting it out there based on reports from players that Mike Babcock, in joining this new team and trying to get to know his players or maybe set a tone with his players, has been requesting to see photos from players' camera rolls, like on their phones. And I don't know if it's like specific photos like, hey, what's your family look like? Or can I see your kids? Which is also like, we'll get into that in a second. That's kind of a weird thing to do. But to take a look and scan through the whole rolls, and apparently like on airplay mode, like screen sharing so that the entire coaching staff can see or the rest of the team can see, we're getting pretty personal pretty fast here. The quote, which is again not like attributed, but I want to know the type of person you are. That's the tone of what is being alleged here with Mike Babcock by the podcast, but specifically by Paul Bissonnette. And it's interesting, right? Former player, now broadcaster, has connections to the league. I mean, this is a difficult road for Biz to go down, but it's an important one. He's taking a stand on this because like he said on Twitter, enough with putting guys on the spot in the coach's room, asking them to link their phones up to airplay mode and grilling them. I've had tons of players confirm it. So let's go back to the whole issue here. Asking somebody to show pictures from their phone. Like, your phone is a pretty personal device. There's a reason there's the lock on it, right? The Face ID or the Touch ID. You don't want just anybody getting in there. And your camera roll, honestly, is a very big slice of at least who I am, my wife, my kids, my pets, my parents, family members, places I've been, things. I mean, it is literally a documentation of your life in a lot of ways. It's so personal. I don't know that I've ever asked anybody to straight up see what their camera roll looks like. So what is that? What is that intention? Is that to try and show a little dominance? Is that to try and set a tone over a person or a group? I mean, Boone Jenner, who is on the Blue Jackets, and Mike Babcock have both put out statements through the team saying, no, this was just a big misunderstanding. And, it's a try to get to know you type exercise, but I don't know. I mean, if I'm the head coach and I said, hey, guys, tomorrow, here's what we'll do. Everybody come in with 3 photos you want to share. Whatever you want to share. And whatever, could be a vacation you took, a picture of the beach. Doesn't have to be your family, your kids, or let's be honest, a lot of single young players, what have you been doing? So, I don't know that I've ever asked anybody to see photos of somebody or something that I didn't know. Like, maybe sometimes if I haven't seen somebody's kids in 2 years, are they big now? Do you have any pictures? Like, maybe, and I'm already friends with them. But to introduce yourself and say, hey, let me look at your phone. It is kind of a weird power move. Again, I can understand the creativity of sharing, and I do appreciate, that is a way to get to know people better, but it's got to come with some better framework and guidelines if you're going to do it. And, again, for Paul Bissonnette to take this stand and for it to gain some momentum, we've seen other players come out and say, this is not new, this is not surprising. Like, the momentum on the Blue Jackets, the pressure being put on the Blue Jackets and Mike Babcock, it's mounting and it's not going anywhere. And so that's why I said at the beginning, this is a controversy. How is this going to go? Honestly, what comes next and how is this monitored here? But the bigger picture issue, and this is what I really wanted to get at, this is all kind of hockey culture. The same hockey culture where players get hurt, they don't talk about it, they hide it, even from their coaches, from their teammates, from everybody. Hockey culture, you're there to do a job, you do whatever it takes, even if it means sacrificing something greater. I've never been a fan of everything that comes along with hockey culture. I love the hard work, I love the the determination. I love the leadership a lot of times. I love so many things about hockey and its culture, but not everything. And there are even more things that I despise, but one of them is just the, how do I say it? The things that don't, what I say here, don't leave the room. Some things, if they are, and I hate to say abusive by nature, but maybe coaching and a coaching player relationship can get to that. Coaches in the NHL are super hard on their players. Now, let me also throw in this disclaimer. I'm somebody who responds well to a lot of that type of stuff. For example, when I ride the Peloton, I love Alex Toussaint. The guy gets in your face, yells at you while you're riding. I love that. I need that. I need somebody to push me. My wife, on the other hand, wants none of that. She needs more of the motivation of encouragement, the positives, versus me, who I just want somebody to yell at me. And I'm not saying that I'm right on that. It's what I prefer. And I'm just using my wife as an example here because we talked about this before. Coaches in the NHL are hard on their players, and that's something that rarely leaves the room. Maybe if it gets to this point, things like this do need to leave the room. And so if this was an old school way of establishing a coach and dominance and structure, these ways, I mean, if this is a tipping point in this type of situation, then I think the NHL and its players and its coaches and the way they handle their interactions, like I think that hockey culture and its old ways might be on thin ice if something like this is being addressed how it is. So I don't know if hockey culture is going to change because of this. I don't know if Mike Babcock is going to have to really just back off everything on a personal level and just keep it strictly to X's and O's. But then it's hard, right? How do you critique a team? And the Blue Jackets are still going to struggle this year. How does he go about doing his job if he can't be critical at all? But there's a fine line. What you can do, what you used to be able to do, what you can't do anymore, what should have never happened in the first place. The airplay mode thing is weird. Yeah, I don't know that I've ever done that or never done that or would even ask under any circumstances, but who knows? It's a lot of this person, that person, different accounts at this point. I guess we'll see how this plays out. But look, it's definitely something to keep your eye on. You made it here to the end of the video. I really appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. That'll greatly help me out. Also, don't forget, subscribe to the channel so I can definitely see you back here next time.